You don't often get a chance to hear from a former al-Qaeda jihadist, someone known to have recruited and radicalized young Muslims to fight and kill in the name of Islam. Today, we introduce you to a man who did just that. He was a mentor of one of France's most notorious terrorists. Now he claims to be de-radicalized and is speaking out because he says he feels he has a moral debt to pay for his years spreading a deadly ideology. Our new Full Measure contributor, Jonathan Elias, traveled to Paris to meet him.
Farid Binyetou was the self-proclaimed emir of Butte-Chaumont, a name taken from this sprawling park located in a working-class neighborhood of northeast Paris, where we met him.
So this was the park where you trained people?
Yes.
Binyetou is now 37 years old and at least 5 years removed from his life as a charismatic, self-taught preacher of jihad.
I'm from Al-Qaeda.
He says he joined al-Qaeda right after 9/11. And it was the U.S.-led invasion of Iraq in 2003 that helped fuel the rise of his cell. He organized his followers into a homegrown terrorist group of about 10 members.
And they were all radicalized?
All radicalized, yes, of course.
At the time, he says America was the #1 enemy, and he set up a pipeline to send radicalized French Muslims to al-Qaeda in Iraq to help kill the infidels.
For fighting, only for fighting.
Against English and Americans?
Americans only.
Only Americans?
Only Americans, yes.
His most famous recruit was a young French orphan named Sharif Kouachi. Kouachi's name would become known to the world some 10 years later for carrying out one of the most horrific crimes in modern French history, the attack on the French satirical newspaper Charlie Hebdo. Farid Binyetou was his first mentor.
You armed him, his mind,
yes,
as a weapon.
Exactly, yes.
Binyetou agreed to sit down with us as long as he could cover his eyes for his security.
Did you feel that you had a sense of blood on your hands?
J'aurais toujours aimé dire que j'ai...
I wish I could have said that at the time I had turned the page and had nothing to do with this, but the reality would catch up with me. I transmitted this ideology, and when one does that, one transmits death, one transmits destruction. So, inevitably, I have blood on my hands.
Farid Binyetou's terrorist group was broken up by French police in 2005, one day before Kouachi was to depart for Iraq. Both were convicted of criminal association with a terrorist enterprise. Binyetou says jail exposed him to different points of view and slowly changed his mind. He was just 15 when he first became radicalized.
Everything I was aspiring to was that one day, finally on this earth, we could live under Islamic law, to stop injustice, to make the world a better place.
By the time he was in his early 20s, he was actively radicalizing others.
You were arming the people that you were training with an ideology for them to commit acts of terror in order to accomplish their goals.
That was exactly my role during all these years, to teach them the ideology, give them the justification. They wanted to fight, but still had some doubts, and I was trying to answer their questions so they would go through with their actions.
A part of your teaching, martyrdom?
Yes, absolutely.
French media reported that 3 of his followers died in a suicide bombing in Iraq. Binyetou says he lost track of his Muslim recruits, but he is quick to point out that he never called for violence on French soil, which he says has become the new battleground for many radicalized French Muslims.
They hate this country.
They hate this country?
They hate this country.
But they live in this country?
Yes.
But why do they hate this country?
Because they think in this country there is big segregation against the Muslims.
Binyetou says he doesn't want Muslims to be seen as victims in France, and says the real question is what's driving these young people to want to commit attacks in the first place.
Inevitably, every time there is an attack, it makes me want to do more to stop the attacks, to share my journey, to help young people think this over. That's the message each attack sends me, that we don't do enough to stop this.
Now the man who radicalized one of France's most infamous terrorists has written a book and is working with the country's leading de-radicalization expert to try and convince jihadis to change before it's too late.
Now, I cannot tell you that there is a magic remedy, but there is a lot that can be done to save people and stop them from getting into something worse than they're already into.
Some will see this and they won't believe you. You know that. They think once a terrorist, always a terrorist. Are they wrong?
I think that's one of the biggest mistakes one could make. The first ingredient we need in order to take somebody out of this ideology is to believe you can do it.
Benyetu says he has spoken to about 20 individuals over the past year, but stressed it's a long, slow process to break free from a jihadist mindset, and that it's still too soon to say if these people have become de-radicalized.